Thank you so much for joining us today for this chapter of Time-Hopping Hero, Ethan's First Leaps. We truly appreciate you taking the time to read along with us. Just a reminder that the English subtitles for this video are accurate, and YouTube offers some fantastic tools to enhance your learning. If needed, you can use the auto-translate function to view subtitles in your preferred language. You can also slow down the video playback speed if you'd like to listen more carefully. Thanks again for spending your valuable time with us. Enjoy the story. Time-Hopping Hero, Ethan's First Leaps. Copyright 2025. Chunking to Fluency. Chapter 2. The Workshop and the Shadow. A year and a half had passed since 8-year-old Ethan first began saving his pennies, fueled by the distant dream of acquiring a time machine. Now 10, Ethan's world had expanded far beyond the confines of school and his backyard. His days, especially now that summer vacation had arrived, were increasingly spent in the dusty, enchanting realm of Mr. Abernathy's pawnshop, and more importantly, in the hidden workshop behind it. What had begun as a curious fascination had blossomed into a profound mentorship. Mr. Abernathy, with his spectacles often perched on the tip of his nose and his perpetually ink-stained fingers, had taken Ethan under his wing like a forgotten relic. He taught Ethan to identify different types of wires, the subtle hum of a healthy capacitor, and the intricate dance of gears and cogs. Ethan, in turn, absorbed every lesson with an insatiable hunger, his small hands becoming surprisingly adept at handling tools, his mind a sponge for the complex theories Mr. Abernathy would patiently unravel. Their conversations had moved beyond simple questions about time travel. They now delved into concepts like the space-time continuum, temporal displacement, and the paradoxical nature of altering the past. The time machine, once a skeletal frame of metal and wires, had transformed dramatically. It now boasted shimmering panels that reflected the workshop's bare bulb, intricate conduits snaking across its frame, and a control console that pulsed with a faint, almost imperceptible energy. The air around it often hummed with anticipation, a low thrum that only they seemed to notice, a melody of latent power. Ethan knew, intellectually, that such an invention, the culmination of Mr. Abernathy's life's work, would be priceless. The dream of purchasing a time machine had subtly shifted to a quiet, determined ambition. One day, he would build his own. He would meticulously sketch his own designs in a worn notebook, simplifying, innovating, often comparing them to the grandeur of Mr. Abernathy's masterpiece. He was still saving his pennies, not for the purchase of a machine, but for the parts of his machine, a future endeavor that felt both impossible and inevitable. Mr. Abernathy, for his part, often watched Ethan with a peculiar mix of pride and a hint of tiredness in his eyes. Unbeknownst to Ethan, as the weeks turned into months and the machine took tangible form, Mr. Abernathy found himself contemplating its future more and more. His hands, though still capable, sometimes trembled, and there were days when a weariness settled over him that even Ethan, engrossed in his work, couldn't help but notice. Mr. Abernathy would simply attribute it to long hours, but a quiet, unspoken thought lingered in the old man's mind. Perhaps this is where it belongs someday. The increased hours at the pawnshop meant fewer hours elsewhere, and that, unfortunately, included less time to avoid Billy. Billy, a boy a year older and a head taller than Ethan, had always been a fixture of the neighborhood, a loud, unpredictable force that most kids learned to steer clear of. But with Ethan now spending his days conspicuously at Mr. Abernathy's shop, Billy's attention had honed in like a predator. He'd stand across the street, sometimes alone, sometimes with a small, smirking entourage, shouting taunts that echoed off the quiet storefronts. "Hey, Abernathy's apprentice, still polishing old junk for pocket change?" Or, "Nerd alert! Time-traveling losers club meets inside." The words, though hurtful, rarely stung as deeply as they once did. Ethan had developed a thicker skin, and the shared purpose he felt with Mr. Abernathy acted as a shield. What truly began to capture his attention, however, was the raw, unbridled anger simmering beneath Billy's aggressive exterior. It wasn't just typical schoolyard meanness. There was a desperation to it, a constant need to exert control or inflict discomfort. Ethan, with his mind so accustomed to dissecting complex systems and unraveling paradoxes, found himself applying that same analytical lens to Billy. Why was he like this? What combination of events, what past experiences, could mold a person into such a consistently hateful individual? He'd observe Billy from the dusty shop window, noting the slump of his shoulders when his friends ignored him, or the way his eyes would flicker with a strange mix of defiance and sadness just before he launched into another tirade. It was a puzzle, as intricate and perplexing as any circuit board. One sweltering afternoon, a particularly vicious volley of insults from Billy left Ethan feeling less angry and more curious. Billy's face had been contorted not just with malice, but with something else, a fleeting shadow of something resembling pain, gone as quickly as it appeared. It was a look Ethan had seen before, on the faces of adults struggling with hidden burdens. There has to be something more to it, Ethan thought, wiping dust from a control panel. Something deeper than just wanting to be mean. The idea, once an abstract concept from a movie, began to crystallize into a concrete desire. What if he could use the machine, not to see dinosaurs, but to understand? What if he could step back in time, just for a moment, and peer into Billy's past? Not to change anything, not to interfere, but simply to observe, to grasp the events that had twisted him into the boy who stood yelling across the street. The thought felt radical, almost illicit, yet a powerful feeling of compassion, rather than fear, began to take root in his chest. Billy, the bully, might be in more pain inside than he was letting on, and Ethan, perhaps, could find out why. As the summer days stretched on, filled with the hum of electronics and the distant echoes of Billy's taunts, a new, quieter concern began to emerge at home. Laura Pruitt, Ethan's mother, a woman whose vibrant spirit was usually expressed through the splashes of color on her canvases, seemed to be losing some of her characteristic glow. She was an artist, not just by hobby, but by the very essence of her being. Their small house was her studio, filled with the scent of oil paints and the quiet music of her brushstrokes. She would often hum while she worked, a soft melody that was as much a part of Ethan's childhood as his father Thomas's patient explanations of the stars. Laura had a knack for seeing the beauty in the ordinary, a trait she had nurtured in Ethan, teaching him to find wonder in intricate gears and the patterns of light on a dusty window. But lately, the humming was less frequent. The canvases sometimes remained untouched for days, and her boundless energy, once a constant, now flickered like an old light bulb. She'd complain of a persistent tiredness, a dull ache that seemed to reside just beneath her cheerful demeanor. Ethan, accustomed to his mother's effervescent presence, began to notice these subtle changes with a child's acute sensitivity. Though he couldn't quite articulate the vague worry that started to coil in his stomach, he'd offer to help with chores or quietly sit beside her as she rested, a silent observer to the gradual dimming of her light. The vibrant hues on her palette seemed to mock the growing pallor in her cheeks, and the easy laughter that had once filled their home now felt more strained, more forced. The shift was almost imperceptible at first, like a slow fade of a vibrant color. Then, the moments of profound fatigue became more frequent. Laura would excuse herself from dinner early, her smile thin and her eyes shadowed. She'd spend entire afternoons wrapped in a blanket on the sofa, the sketchbook beside her untouched, the familiar scent of turpentine absent from the air. Thomas, Ethan's father, began to speak in hushed tones on the phone, his brow furrowed with a worry he tried unsuccessfully to hide from his son. Ethan found himself less excited about the time machine, less absorbed by Billy's latest antics. His mind, once a boundless playground of scientific exploration and fantastical journeys, was increasingly consumed by a growing knot of fear in his gut. The silence from his mother's art studio was louder than any taunt from Billy, more chilling than the deepest theoretical paradox. He didn't know what was happening, but he knew, with a child's certainty, that something precious was slipping away. And for all his fascination with time, he felt utterly powerless to stop it. Chapter 2. Chunk Phrases of Interest. Number 1. The Enchanting Realm. This chunk refers to a magical or captivating place that holds a strong sense of wonder and allure. Example, he discovered the enchanting realm of the old library. Number 2. A profound mentorship. This chunk refers to a very deep and significant guiding relationship by an experienced person to a less experienced one. Example, their relationship evolved into a profound mentorship. Number 3. To absorb every lesson. This chunk refers to learning eagerly and completely in order to understand as much information as possible. Example, the eager student strove to absorb every lesson. Number 4. To unravel complex theories. This chunk refers to the act of making complicated ideas understandable by clarification or explanation. Example, the professor helped them to unravel complex theories. Number 5. To delve into concepts. This chunk refers to the act of studying, exploring, or thinking deeply about ideas in greater detail. Example, they spent hours delving into concepts of physics. Number 6. A control console. This chunk refers to a panel with instruments and controls for operating a machine or system. Example, he adjusted the settings on a control console. Number 7. To meticulously sketch. This chunk refers to the act of drawing very carefully and precisely. Example, the architect began to meticulously sketch the new building. Number 8. The grandeur of the masterpiece. This chunk refers to the impressive or magnificent quality of a highly skilled work. Example, she was awestruck by the grandeur of the masterpiece. Number 9. The unbridled anger. This chunk refers to intense, unrestrained rage or fury that is not controlled or held back. Example, he screamed with the unbridled anger of a frustrated child. Number 10. To exert control. This chunk refers to the use of power or influence to dominate, manage, or direct a situation. Example, he tried to exert control over the chaotic situation. Number 11. To inflict discomfort. This chunk refers to the act of causing distress, physical unease, or emotional unease to someone. Example, the bully seemed to inflict discomfort on purpose. Number 12. To dissect complex systems. This chunk refers to the act of carefully analyzing or breaking down intricate arrangements into their components for study. Example, the scientist's job was to dissect complex systems in nature. Number 13. The slump of his shoulders. This chunk refers to the way someone's shoulders droop, often indicating defeat, sadness, or exhaustion. Example, she noticed the slump of his shoulders after he lost the game. Number 14. To launch into a tirade. This chunk refers to the sudden start of a furious verbal attack. Example, the manager began to launch into a tirade about poor performance. Number 15. The circuit board. This chunk refers to a board containing interconnected electronic components of electronic devices. Example, he carefully examined the circuit board for loose connections. Number 16. The echo of his taunts. This chunk refers to the lingering sound or memory of someone's insulting remarks. Example, even after he left, the echo of his taunts remained. Number 17. Her characteristic glow. This chunk refers to a person's distinctive aura or vitality. Example, everyone missed her characteristic glow when she was ill. Number 18. A trait she nurtured. This chunk refers to a characteristic that someone developed or encouraged over time. Example, patience was a trait she nurtured throughout her life. Number 19. The canvas remained untouched. This chunk refers to a painting surface that has not been worked on, often in reference to a lack of artistic activity. Example, for days, the canvas remained untouched in her studio. Number 20. His latest antics. This chunk refers to the most recent playful, silly, mischievous, or attention-seeking behaviors of someone. Example, we laughed at his latest antics during the party. We hope that by listening to the story and reviewing the chunk phrases of interest, you've had a chance to increase your English vocabulary in an enjoyable way. If you enjoyed this chapter and want to continue your journey with Ethan and his time-hopping adventures, please subscribe to the Chunking to Fluency channel. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Feel free to share this video with anyone who might enjoy it or is learning English. And don't forget to give it a like. Finally, if you hit the notification bell icon, you'll be sure to know when the next chapter of time-hopping hero, Ethan's First Leaps, is released. Thanks again for listening, and we look forward to sharing more stories with you soon. Be blessed.